Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the entire United States. Good morning to the entire world. Receiving our signals via the magic of el Internet, that magical thing formerly known as ARPANET, created by whom? Created by you. Created by we the people, now controlled by the billionaires, but something, along with many other things, it is intended that we take back. Anyway, folks, without further ado, let's go to the geniuses in el estudio with el señor Howard Reynolds and Jacques Van Beba.
Good morning, Egberto. Howard's not here today.
Oh, okay. Howard is not there today, so you're flying solo.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, we know, you know what? We know that you're the octopus who can do all kind of magical things all at the same time, man. You know, you make two hands seem like eight.
Yeah, when it's running by itself, it is double duty. So, especially when you have a lot of calls.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But anyway, what's your word of the day, my brother?
All right. America, a country that says, think of the children. Do it for the children. My experience has been when somebody says that, the children get put on the back burner, out of sight, out of mind. The GOP is targeting children now to shake out their lollipop money and give it to the billionaires for a tax break. All I can say is shame, shame. This really hurts the single mom trying to raise children without a father. Can you imagine the fear and anxiety of not being able to access programs like Medicaid and a school lunch program for that single mom? This proves the GOP is not the party of family values.
Yes, it does prove it's not. You know, it has never been. I mean, it's a party of rhetoric. It's a party. I mean, it always says it's doing things for the family, but when you look at what it actually does, it's not for the family. It always claims that it believes in what they call conservative values. We respect women, but then again, they elect somebody who actually, a judge said he raped women. A judge said that he abused women. They believe in not stealing and all these good stuff, yet that is who they elect. I mean, Donald Trump is a template that proves the hypocrisy of the party. I mean, so you nailed it. You nailed it as usual, my dear brother. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, if America has a reckoning to deal with, maybe Donald Trump is the one bringing that on.
Insightful. You know, I think that is actually true because, you know, if his first election could have been called a fluke. A second election means, oh my God, many of us are actually represented by this guy. This guy is an instantiation of some of us. And to put it bluntly, a large portion of us. And in the voting population the last time, a plurality of us. The good news is that he does not represent the majority of us. So therefore, it is incumbent on the majority of us to get involved and make sure that the real American spirit, the real American values is reflected by those that are elected. We got to get off our butts and make sure that is a reality. Anything else, my brother?
No, that's it. Let's get on with your program.
Let's get on with it. Well, you know, I wrote the program up, and then just as I went to bed last night, because somebody mentioned something about tariffs and Donald Trump forcing Walmart to not pass the prices on to the consumer, I said, you know what? Let's do a tariffs 101. So before I get into this, the meat of the subjects for today, I want to talk a little bit about tariffs so people get a full understanding. Look, there are reasons for tariffs. One of the main reasons for tariffs would be to help a critical industry for national security reasons. Before I continue, Lee the Bearcat from Austin, welcome aboard the chat, as well as Joanne from Los Angeles, California. Lee is from Austin, Joanne from LA. Welcome aboard. Harry Denson from Houston, or Brother Harry, welcome aboard. I got late to the chat in Substack, so welcome aboard Bridget Buchanan, Frank Johnson, Gwen Baird, Al Christensen, and Rachel Rossen said, please, let's see, she says, please talk about David Hogg and why the DNC leadership is rebuffing him and his vital generation of young men. We can't afford to turn off this election go round. You're absolutely right. We can't do that. I think the David Hogg story is sort of bi-directional, and we'll talk about that in a little bit then. I'll pick it up for you. John A. says, giant tax increase on people equal tariffs. And that's true the way Donald Trump has done it. Now, here's the deal. So there are reasons for tariffs. One good reasons would be to help a critical industry. Let's give an example. Let's say we wanted to, let's just use steel as an example. China and other places could always make steel a lot cheaper than we make it. The question is, should we allow every single steel manufacturer to go out of business because other countries can make steel a lot cheaper? There are national security reasons why we would want to keep at a level of steel making know-how in the United States. And that reason is, of course, we have industries, space industries, a lot of industries that are dependent on that. And if there is some sort of a supply chain issue, whether manufactured or not, it materially affects the country. So there are reasons that things like certain products, you would want to have some level of tariffs to equalize the field, to make sure that at least the know-how within that critical industry remains in your country. You also could have tariffs on specific products to correct for what a foreign country does to make their products cheaper. Let's say that country subsidizes all of its rubber manufacturing, right? That means that in a market system, that means that particular country would have given an unfair advantage to manufacture, let's say, rubber or whatever in that country, and in so doing, takes away the actual essence of what free marketing is all about. So one could see marginal tariffs on products from countries that actually falsely make those prices cheaper than they normally would be. And another reason would be for social reasons. Let's say some other country in Europe decided to start slave labor, child labor, or take advantage of foreigners who come into, or immigrants who come into that land, force them into working, which inherently makes the prices of that product cheaper because the labor is small or non-existent. That's a reason to actually have a tariff as well. And then there is the regressive reason for having tariffs, and that is simply having tariffs as a sales tax to raise money for the Treasury. And we'll see clearly that is all Donald Trump really cares about. Donald Trump doesn't care about creating manufacturing back in the United States. Donald Trump doesn't really care about creating more jobs from manufacturing in the United States. And later, I will tell you why. Now, and by the way, as I am speaking about this, if I'm unclear, or there's something that you want to ask specifically, throw it into the chat, or give me a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that is 713-526-5738 before I move on to the second subject. Okay, now, how does tariffs actually work? When Donald Trump or anybody says we're throwing a tariff on China, you can't say you're throwing a tariff on China or a tariff on France or a tariff on Australia or anything like that. That makes absolutely no sense. You can say I am charging a tariff on products from a particular country, so that I can say I'm putting, like what Donald Trump did and what Biden upheld. I am throwing a tariff on electric cars coming from China. That means that when an electric car leaves China and it reaches the American docks, that we say, okay, person who bought that Chinese car, that Chinese electric car, you will have to pay the United States Treasury a tax of X percent, meaning if it's 100%, in this case for a while, he charged 145%. So if the car cost the manufacturer the importer $10,000 to import that car, when that manufacturer goes, or when that importer goes to bring that car into the country, it has to pay the United States government for that $10,000 car. It has to pay the United States government $14,500. What that means is the base price of that car to the importer, as opposed to being $10,000, which is what the China Corporation charged him, it will now cost $24,500. All that money goes to the Treasury as a tax. That's what it is. The Treasury, the United States IRS, gets that money. The Treasury gets that money. Not the company in China, not the corporation who imported that stuff. The government gets that money. Remember what I said, reasons for tariffs? One of the reasons is a regressive reason, which is only to raise money for the Treasury. Now, when glass bottles that a lot of small companies import, glass bottles, T-shirts, when you put 145% tariffs, that $2 T-shirt now costs you what? About $145. That now costs you over $5. That $2 T-shirt, because of the tariff. Now he has reduced it to 30% from China. That means that $2 T-shirt now costs $2.60. So it goes up. And again, who gets all that money? Not China, but the United States Treasury collects that money. Now, the expectation is that these the rise in price will go directly to the consumer, and you want that rise to go to the consumer, because what you're trying to do with the tariff is to change, if you're doing it for the first two purposes I spoke about, which is to help a critical industry or to correct an unfair advantage that another country has. You want those prices to go up in the United States to make it more attractive for a local American company to create a factory to start making that product. Because of the higher price, they can now make that product for a profit locally in the United States. If that price doesn't go up for the consumer would see no difference and continue to buy the same amount of that product from the foreign country that it buys from. And again, there is no reason for change if the consumer doesn't see an increase in price. That's the reason it is done. So when you hear Donald Trump goes on the phone with Walmart or goes on the phone with Amazon and telling these guys to eat the tariffs, it shows that the reasons he claimed he has the tariffs is a lie. If the tariffs is to encourage manufacturing in the United States, the only way you're going to encourage manufacturing in the United States if the consumer, the end consumer who wants that specific product says, I can't want that specific product anymore because it costs me too much. And that is how tariffs are supposed to work. So contrary to what he says, he should want those prices to go up to stimulate a local American industry. But here's the problem. America is not going to start back building or making T-shirts in mass. It won't. Why? Because all this equipment that makes these T-shirts, most of it now is made overseas. So you'll have to import most of these equipments that make textiles, etc. You know, when I just came to this country, there was a factory in Brenham, Texas, that made the cloth for, I think it was jeans or something like that, right there on Main Street, not Main Street, I don't remember the name of the street, in Brenham, Texas. It was a cotton mill, and I worked at that factory pushing these big bales of cotton. I went home white with cotton fibers all over my being. That kind of stuff isn't done in the United States hardly anymore. So if you think America is going to build factories for $3 T-shirts, think again. It's not going to happen. So what it means is that's simply a permanent price increase that has no value in the United States to make its industry better, which then becomes a regressive tax on the average American citizen. What that means is the person in Timbuktu who buys Chinese T-shirts, meaning all the folks who shop at Walmart, that affects them more so than it affects the rich guy who buys some sort of a name brand T-shirt that is made locally, or a name brand T-shirt from Italy, or all these other countries that have lower tariffs. Yesterday I played what David Frum had to say, which was pretty much, tariffs hurt the poor and the middle class more so than the rich, because the middle class gets its products, a lot of its products from overseas. The middle class, most of its expenditures is in service. And most of that service does not fall under tariffs. So again, we are being hoodwinked. You are being hoodwinked. And for those our brothers and sisters in MAGA land who support this president for these tariffs and are that claim they're willing for these prices because it's going to bring back manufacturing to the United States and all that kind of stuff. I think the narrative that I just gave you that is corroborative can be easily corroborated, can actually prove that this guy doesn't have your interests at hand. It was just a reason, a way to raise a lot of money for the Treasury. And why does he need to raise a lot of money for the Treasury? He needs to raise a lot of money for the Treasury because the tax cut he wants to give, no Democrat will vote for it, and therefore he cannot get 60 votes in the Senate. He cannot get 60 votes in the Senate, so therefore he has to pass the bill via a process called reconciliation, which means it has to be a neutral change to the budget in such a manner that he gets, that he can give that tax cut without any further changes to income taxes, etc. To income taxes in a particular manner. Again, that's a way to raise a lot of money. And who does the tariff affect the most? It affects the poor and middle class. It affects his own constituency. So, folks, please, let's not allow the rhetoric that goes on by the president and the failure of the mainstream media to really assess how things really work. Do their job as the fourth estate to let you know exactly how things operate. Let them know, or don't fall for what we call the okie doke. Understand things, make an informed decision, make an informed vote. And I tell you something, the person who would lie to you about your own personal economy, how much can they really care about you? Think about that. How much can someone who lies to you, knowing that their policies are materially going to affect the vast majority of their own constituents, how much can that person care for you? And why would some of you be upset when those of us who come out and tell the truth about your Führer is there not to help themselves, but to help you protect yourself from harming yourself and your family because of lies that are being told to you? Now, when this guy lies about how big his hands are, when he lies to you about things that don't have an effect on you, that is one thing. When he lies in a manner that affects your personal economy, that affects the possibility of your kid going to school, that affects the weather, our support for the weather, and whether we will be able to stand whatever weather events that are going to occur. Whenever he lies about the cuts that he has made that will materially affect your life, whether your kid's going to school, whether the loan that you get, the mortgage that has gone to 7% now, all these things affect you and you pay. And guess who's always the beneficiary of the expensive of what you pay? Guess who is always the beneficiary? When the interest rates go up as they are right now, the rich person who is giving you that mortgage makes more money. When the interest rates goes up on your credit cards, the rich person who loan you the money on your credit card makes more money and you pay more. When the interest rates go up, our deficit goes up. And who pays it? You do. And who are you paying that interest to? The rich guy who got a tax cut, who loaned us back the money that he got or she got from the tax cuts, and loaned us back that money to spend for streets and highways and SNAP and all these other things. We constantly get hoodwinked, and we have to start making the decisions and make these decisions being informed. Again, the lies are out there. You can choose to be willfully ignorant, or you can decide, I care too much about my own family to allow myself to be willfully ignorant. I wanted to clarify that on tariffs. If I was completely clear, great. If I was not, and you have questions, please throw them into either the Substack chat or the YouTube chat or the Facebook live chat or the Twitch chat. I'm following all the different chats. Welcome aboard, Alexandria Dreams from Summerwood. Glenn Ryan, welcome aboard. And let's go. There was a question that was asked in the chat about David Hogg. The David Hogg situation is a difficult situation. Now, let me just say one thing. And I don't want to be disparaging or anything like that, okay? I think it's unfortunate what's going on with David Hogg. Because again, he's a Gen Z person, and we need to get a whole lot of these guys. But there is a counter argument to what he is doing with regards to, I want to remember the name of the co-chair. Let me get it right. The co-chairs of the Democratic Party. Let's see. I want to get, because there are two sides to every story. the co-chairs of the Democratic Party, there's one person saying, David Hogg would make you believe that it's because he made some disparaging comments about the Democratic Party, which I completely agree with. The Democratic Party needs to change. The Democratic Party needs to bring up its youth. There's a whole lot that the Democratic Party needs to do. But also, it is important that within any party, that you work as a team. And it turns out, from what I understand from this other co-chair, that some of the commentary that David Hogg put out there was not completely accurate. Now, when I was at Netroots, I tried to interview David Hogg, and David Hogg turned his back on the interview, because there are very specific questions I had about some of the things that he was saying about the Democratic Party, and I wanted to interview him and ask him what his suggestions were, etc., 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 and he refused. So while I understand what he wants to do, I think you have to understand that whatever game you're playing, you're a part of a team. I'll go into more detail. In fact, I was thinking about writing a blog about that, and that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll bring it on here. But before I go any further, there's somebody on the line. Tom, come on in. Is this Tom Zarnik, my brother from Michigan?
Yes, it is.
All right.
I have a poem, but I'll send you a poem this afternoon if I can get to it. I did write one recently, a limerick, but I got a question, and just an observation to begin with regarding tariffs. I know you talked about Walmart, Amazon. One of the things that I haven't heard mentioned too much is the Dollar Tree and the dollar stores. I was at the Dollar Tree the other day, and it was a shock. They had raised their prices from $1 to $1.25, which is fine, and they had some items that were a little more expensive. But when I went in there, I couldn't believe it. Almost all of the items that I normally shop for had gone up substantially in price. It shouldn't be called the Dollar Tree anymore. It should just be called just a regular store, because it doesn't give really many discounts. For example, we went in there to get a tube of toothpaste, which was normally $1, $1.25, a large tube, and they were all gone. There weren't any. They had large tubes of toothpaste for $5.
Wow.
$5 from $1.25 to $5, and I noticed that the brands that they were carrying, they were off brands. They were all gone. The only ones they had was Colgate, and I thought, so they must have got rid of all the ones they were getting from different sources, and those are gone. I went over. We usually buy oatmeal cookies or ginger snaps for $1.25. Nice big assortment. Gone, all of them. All the cookies were gone. They just had these little bags of 2 ounces or 1 ounce bags of snacks all over, and they were $1.25. It was ridiculous. So I mean, you might as well go to a Walmart or another store. So I don't know what's going on. I'm looking all over the place, and all the prices have gone up. And I thought, well, I guess this is what we have to do with the tariffs. So it's not just a 10% or 30% increase. It could be, a 300-400% increase on some of these things. So
before you finish, I'm glad you said that, because I hadn't gone into a dollar store in a while. My wife would tell you, God, because every time I go into the store, I'm shocked. The other day, she sent me to get something at H-E-B, which is one of our big retailers here. And I came home and I said, Linda, do you know this costs XYZ? Linda's like, she just started laughing at me, right? Because it was like, I don't know if you remember when Bush went to the grocery store and they made fun of Bush because he didn't even know what a scanner was. Well, that was like,
right.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the thing about it is, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think those people who are, and it's a lot of Trump voters and a lot of all of us who go into these dollar stores, they need to know that those doubling in prices, etc., is a direct result of what Donald Trump did. That was a self-inflicted wound on the people who shops there. What else is it that you're going to tell me, Tom?
Well, I was going to mention too that the price increases, but also product shrinkage is important to look at when you buy things. But the other thing was, I hope everybody really is aware that Trump did something recently that sounded really interesting and good. He wrote an executive order requiring, or at least asking, the pharmaceutical companies to lower drug prices within 30 days and give most favored nation, this is something interesting, most favored nation pricing, so that we could have the same prices that for prescription drugs that they get overseas. And this happened in Trump's previous administration. He did the same thing. I don't know if the executive order was exactly the same, but he promised to reduce drug prices. It never happened. So I'm hoping that people, and either politicians and pundits and everybody else, kind of hold his feet to the fire and tell everybody what's going on with drug prices after 30 days, and say, okay, now where's the most favored nation pricing that we're supposed to get, and we're supposed to have he said up to a 90% decrease in prices for prescription drugs. I'm a little skeptical it's ever going to happen, but I think it's something that should be brought out. And if you're going to make a promise like that, you should keep it.
Now, it's interesting because I did cover that on a show a few days ago. And here's the deal. I read the entire executive order, and it's an executive order without any teeth. It was a PR stunt to get the news media to cover it, because what you find out, it is a suggestion to these companies that they do it. Read the executive orders right there at his whitehouse.gov. It is a suggestion that it's, if you look at what it says, it's a suggestion, and it says if they don't do it within, I think it was 30 days, I don't remember how many days,
30 days.
Then
30 days.
Yeah, and then the Justice Department or one of the departments would go ahead and open an investigation. In other words, there was no shall in there that says you shall make your pricing exactly as it is overseas. But there is an interesting thing with that, Tom, right? Because if you believe in capitalism, right? If you believe in capitalism, the president should not have the right to do that. Okay, and this is where I come in with a bifurcated economy. If you believe in capitalism, what Donald Trump did to Walmart, saying you go eat the prices, or when he goes to Amazon and says that's what's called a controlled economy, which is what? A communist economy, right? Not even a socialist economy, a communist economy. And that is what he's doing, right? What he really should do is say we have a segment of our society that doesn't fall under the capitalist domain, and that particular segment are the things that are of critical need to people: drugs, medicine, healthcare, energy. There are certain parts of our economy we shouldn't leave at the whims of the capitalists. And then there are certain parts of our economy that it should be laissez-faire. You compete the best you can, and and that is, I think, that is where I think we have to be honest about having a failed economic system that purports itself to be free market, but really isn't. It's sort of, it's sort of a system that is just, we throw this here, we throw that here. But anything else, Tom?
Right. No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my brother. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Let's go to Donald, my brother Donald. Come on in.
Hey, good morning. At least you wasn't picking that cotton. You were just pushing it around. Now,
I know.
Okay, I want to know how much money that Walmart makes off the supplemental food resources that we give everybody. Why do they not have to report that? That should be a law we need to change.
Are you talking about
on it by the magic cards. Yeah, if somebody uses a magic card, it needs to be separated out. And let's see how much money they get.
Oh,
because
wow.
I don't know how much we're subsidizing their wealth.
You know, that is such a good point, because whenever somebody uses your SNAP card or whatever card there's a large percentage of the monies that they make from people who are subsidized. So therefore, a lot of our tax dollars goes directly into Walmart's coffers. So, I mean, that would be an interesting number to see, because, you know, there were
true data.
Yeah, there were actually commentary out there that Walmart, with the low wages that they pay, that they directed, and it's not only Walmart, that they directed their employees on how to get food stamps based on the small pay that they get. So I mean, that's a good thing. Think about it. We subsidize some of Walmart's employees because they need these food stamps and other services. And again, a lot of the people who buy these products are on subsidies, and they spend that subsidy in Walmart. That should be interesting. Yeah, I get it. Donald, what's your next point?
Okay, the other point I got is I still have jelly jars, mason jars, and those aluminum cups and pans in my cupboard. Now, the reason I do that is because I go back in time and I look at the roots and I look at the tree and where it came from. Now, probably somewhere in my stuff, I've got a magic white and red and white checkerboard towel that kept everything fresh. Because the way I grew up, my grandparents were from the Depression era. So you use mason jars, you use jelly jars. People got to look at what they spend money on. If you're buying garbage from Walmart, you're going to be buying that garbage every couple of years and replacing it and throw it away. Just save up and buy quality. It's just like your furniture. If you're buying garbage, I mean, they've got it so bad, you buy garbage and then you do all the labor to put it together, and then it's junk. So it's the way people spend their money. And then the last thing, so Brian don't bring up Cleveland anymore. There's a difference if you go up 59 and you go up 45. Now, I live up 45, so you do the math. Cleveland's a total different area. I hate to say that. All the way up. So those people, there's good people in the quarters and stuff like that, but some of them white people, they ain't nothing you could do with them. And that's all I got to say. Go to the Walmart up there in Cleveland and see what shocking surprise you get.
No comment. Thank you so kindly, Donald. You have a wonderful rest of your day, all right?
Later.
Take care, buddy.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
All right, let's go to Bruce. Come on in, Bruce.
Good morning, Egberto. How are you?
I'm doing fine, my brother. Talk to me.
Before I go on my subject, I want to say I bought coffee yesterday in a large can, and when I put it in the cupboard beside the old can, there was a considerable difference in size. But anyway, the reason I called is I was watching the Late Show last night, and they said someone actually pitched the idea of a reality TV show with immigrants competing for a citizenship slot. And that's so disgusting. And that's just like, and I'm not trying to be funny here, I'm being or facetious. That's just like if they had starving kids competing for chicken nuggets. I mean, it's crazy. But anyway, I have my own proposal for Republicans on a reality TV show. And we could run it like American Idol. We could phone our vote in for our favorite. Televise a Republican ass-kissing contest. I'm done. Bye.
Yeah, I know, right? And Marco Rubio should be the person leading that campaign. All right, let's go to Johnny. Come on in, Johnny.
Yeah, speaking of product shrinkage, let me report my observation just the other day. We buy black olives from Walmart, the Walmart brand, what they call the Great Value. They make it look like the Kroger with the oval blue with the white lettering inside. And I noticed the cans are the exact same size. They're not different. They look the same exact size. But the black olives of yesteryear were 6.0 ounces. Now it's 5.75 ounces, but the price is the same.
It's called shrinkage, yeah.
Right, product shrinkage can be very disgusting.
Shrinkflation.
Yeah, the cans are the same size, but on the label, at least they're honest enough to tell you, we're screwing you by 0.25 ounces, same price. So you gotta be able to engage in math in all sorts of ways, just like accountants do. Oh, and by the way, Donald, I noticed a few days ago, last week or the week before, you made a comment or an observation about people who go to the grocery store using these what you refer to as magic cards, people on public assistance, and you made a comment that I thought was kind of, I guess it was a Freudian slip of yours that reveals how you feel about people on public assistance. The thing is, when people buy stuff on public assistance, they get to choose what they buy, just like you do. You're saying that, they don't get to choose. But people who aren't on public assistance, they get to spend their money any way they like. What's the difference?
Good point. I think, we have been taught in America to make the poor, look at the poor as invisible, and also to also make the poor. What is the word that I want to use? Less than. Okay. And let me just put it this way. It is, we have to change that, because let me give an example. That person who works the register at Walmart is making a large percentage less than, let's say, that person who runs the register at Buc-ee's. Look, I don't know if any of you ever been to Buc-ee's, right? Buc-ee's, the owner of Buc-ee's is a Trump supporter and all that good stuff. And we shop whenever we're traveling at Buc-ee's, and people would ask, like, wait a minute, we should be boycotting Buc-ee's because he's a Trump guy. And I'm like, I don't care if this guy vote for Trump for one reason. I can understand, and what I'm saying is going to be relatively hypocritical, okay? But I look at what the end product is with regards to employees. And if you go to Buc-ee's and you see what Buc-ee pays its employees, you say, okay, a Buc-ee's register employee makes much more than a Walmart employee. A Buc-ee's person generally doesn't have to be on assistance than a Walmart person. So what we have to say is, Buc-ee's is paying his employees well. You go into a Buc-ee's store, it looks like America. In other words, these people hire everybody. So he's doing, from what I see on the outside, I am seeing this person following all the things that we ask corporations to do. Right? Good corporations to do. And by the way, this is not enough advertising for Buc-ee's, but my wife and I were talking about this, and I'm like, imagine I support this guy. And it was like, because he's doing the humane things that is completely anathema to the persons he supports. So I don't know. Maybe he's doing it because of who his clientele is, etc. I brought that up because I'm saying, you have some companies that pay well and some companies that don't pay well. So we cannot look at the poor person and say, well, it's deserving that that because of the jobs that they have. No, we have to realize that our corporations take advantage of people. Anything else, Brother Johnny?
On Buc-ee's, I've never actually been inside that major complex shopping area. I see lots of families going there. Mm-hmm. I've been there for gasoline. And I can tell you what scares me is it looks like these. Have you counted how many gasoline pumps they have? I lost count at 60.
Oh yeah.
I would not want to be anywhere near that place if someone was angry and lit a match.
Well, you know what? There's no reason for those employees to be to be angry, because, like I said, I go into these companies to look at dynamics, right? Look at how people react to each other, how they treat the customer coming in, how they treat each other, their wages and all of that. And all I can do is from outside looking in, Buc-ee's looks like a damn good employer. But hey, I'm running out of time and all my lines are full, Johnny. Let's talk tomorrow, all right?
I'll tell you brother. Experience at Walmart next time.
Thank you, brother. Peace. All right, let's go to Brian, line number 1. All right, Brian, you're going to be coming in pretty soon. Come on in, Brian. Brian, you're on. Brian, 1, 2. Brian, are you on mute? All right. Let's go to Patrick. Brian, call back. We may be having a little phone problems. Let's go to Patrick, line 4. Patrick, you're on. Okay, maybe we're really having some line problems. Let's go to Bard, line. Call back, Patrick. Let's go to Bard, line 3. You're on, Bard. Okay. It could be that we're having some problems because I don't hear Bard either. So I tell you what I'll do. While the studio try to figure out what is actually happening, what I'm going to do is I am going to start with what's occurring with the kids, the food and kids. And you can put everybody on until something happens. Let's try line 1 again with Douglas and see if that works. And hopefully it will. Douglas, you're on. Douglas, line 1 on. Okay, it seems like the phone system may need to be rebooted or something. I'm not sure. That's okay. Folks, it seems like we're having some phone problems. So let me close out the show with the actual subject that we were supposed to talk about until something happens with the phone. And Jack, you can just throw people in, and if they feel themselves on, they can start talking, and I'll know to leave what I'm doing to attend them. All right. Look, nearly half of U.S. kids, 34 million, rely on food, health programs targeted by GOP. On the heels of the U.S. House Budget Committee, Republicans, and this is an article from Common Dreams, and this one hit me hard last night. On the heels of the U.S. House Budget Committee's Republicans striking a deal to advance their mega bill following a failed vote last week, a trio of organizations on Monday released a report detailing how the legislation could negatively impact tens of millions of American children. Published by the AFL-CIO First Focus on Children and Unidos US, the report, Children Under Attack, How Congressional Assaults on Health and Food Programs Are Endangering the Youngest Americans, begins by pointing out that, listen to this, nearly 45% of the country's kids, hear this, I didn't quite know it was this high, or 34 million kids, 45%, folks, rely on Medicaid for health insurance, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program known as SNAP for food, or both. I want you guys to see the state that we're in. 45% of our kids, nearly half of our kids, depend on SNAP or Medicaid or both. But put simply, budget reconciliation threatens to do severe and irreparable harm to millions of Americans, children, by terminating their health coverage and taking away help paying for food. These cuts will leave children poorer, hungrier, and sicker. Again, a lot of you are going to, Johnny was sort of interpreting. I honestly don't think my brother Donald meant it in that way to be disparaging. Sometimes our mouth gets ahead of our minds, and whatever the case is, I don't particularly know the specific thing Brother Johnny was talking about, but a lot of times we want to blame the poor for being poor. But when we're talking about these kinds of numbers, we're talking about a systemic problem within our economic system, which is what we have. It's something we've been talking about for decades. This is what income inequality looks like. This is why when I talk about Buc-ee's and that registered person making more at Buc-ee's than they would at Walmart, that manager who's making over $50 an hour at Buc-ee's compared to one at Walmart, etc. These poverty has a corporate component, and that is the abuse, the enslavement of the average worker. When I talk about the antiseptic slavery, many people get upset. I am no slave. Well, look at what the corporation is doing. Specifically, the document details 14 million people would lose their health insurance and millions would lose SNAP or see their benefits drop precipitously. Compared to current law, all who participate in Medicaid and SNAP would be at risk, including people with disabilities, seniors, and low-wage workers at jobs without affordable health insurance. But children would be disproportionately hurt. 44% of all American children benefit from Medicaid or SNAP, compared to 23% of adults under age 65. The publication notes that these budget reconciliation proposals threaten children of all races and ethnicity, but Latino families and others from historically marginalized communities are in particular danger. 2/3 of the children who participate in Medicaid or SNAP come from communities of color, placing them at heightened risk for proposed cuts. These things have consequences. LBW says an important thing to note is that to many folks don't even know they are on Medicaid because it's called various things in different states, like CHIPS in the children health care programs here in Texas. It's important to push information. Thank you for that, LBW. You're absolutely right. Phones are reset. So I think we don't have a lot of time, but go ahead and call. Let's see if we can actually go into that. That's why we need a capital funds budget for the phone system as well. So you're so right, LVW. Over 40% of births are paid for by Medicaid, according to LVW. Thank you for that. Adam says that's an interesting thing to worry about when visiting a gas station. Hello. And Adam W. from Substack says, Gordon Gekko mentality. We have become a country that celebrates the 7 deadly sins as something to admire. I talk about Gekko a whole lot. That fictional character from Wall Street, the movie. I'm glad you mentioned that, Adam W. Randall Baxter says, also the ARPANET, like the way you speak about it, but the facts you may want to listen to Charles Severance, who has several classes out there free of charge, but the most fun one is okay. I'll look into that. Randall, what's your name? Randall Baxley. I'll look into that. In fact, I'm going to copy that. I'm interested to know what that is going to be talking about. All right, come on in. Line number 1. I don't care who it is. Just put line number 1 on because we're running out of time. Line number 1, you are hot. Who am I speaking to? Line number 1. Let's see if that will come through. Line number 1 will be hot in a second. Let's see. Line number 1, getting hot. Line number 1, getting hot. All right, line number 1. Who do I have the honor of speaking with?
Hello?
Yes, you're on. Talk to me.
This is Bard.
Talk to me, Bard. What's up?
Well, I was going to say the fact that you're not talking about Joe Biden having cancer and Alzheimer's proves to me 100% that this was the greatest cover-up in the history of American politics.
Okay.
That Barack Obama pulled this off with this guy having cancer.
No problem, my brother. That is your opinion.
They covered it up.
Thank you, brother. Let's go to Randy, line 2. And let me just answer Bart real quick. Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's in his second instantiation. I am not a fan of Biden at all, but I respect what Biden did while in office. He did a very good job. He ran rings around what the president did. Was there a cover-up? I have no proof of that. Randy, come on in.
Yeah, hello. I miss seeing you out networking, Cup of Joe and things like that. And also, I don't understand how so many people are out there with chips or whatever program that's under Medicaid, and that the doctors aren't going, you guys are, you're going to lose. And there should be an upswell of just total, this is crazy. I can't, we don't have the money to do that. And those folks ought to be rising up and doing something. I just don't understand why it's not happening.
Let me tell you, I haven't been to Starbucks lately, but let me just say this, Randy. The problem is the media that they follow is very effective of fooling them. And that's why I try to open myself up to reach all ideologies, because, again, that is the problem. They are being ill-informed. And by the time they realize that they've been hoodwinked, it's all over. And if they don't fight, if those of us who are fighting to make sure this reconciliation doesn't go through, if we are unsuccessful, most of the people paying the price will be, in fact, the folks that voted for Donald Trump. Anything else, my brother?
Just have yourself some fun and go look at the first part of the first link. And then look at the second link. That's just some fun for you.
Will do. Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you. All right. All right. Let's go. Johnny, you only have 10 seconds. Real quick.
Okay. The greatest cover-up, Mr. Breitbart, Mr. Over-the-top Breitbart. How about what LBJ said in private to a Republican legislator about what Nixon was up to, scuttling his negotiations with Vietnam? That's treason, buddy. You want to talk about cover-up?
And also, wait a minute. And also what Reagan did to Carter by keeping the hostages in Iran longer. Thank you, brother. We'll talk later. I got to go. Jack, what you got for me? All right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here. I wanted to announce that the IGM report is going to be today at 8 a.m. and fund drive starts Thursday.
Great, and tell the IGM we need an improved telephone system, so we need to fundraise for that as well. Anyway, folks, love you all. You can see the rest of the show at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Of course, you can write me directly at KPFT at politicsdoneright.com, KPFT at politicsdoneright.com. All of you in the chat, all of you on Substack, love you all. You all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right